Welcome to Build Your Foundations, our weekly dive into a topic regarding divorce, mediation, finance, or mental health. We want to thank you for coming on this mental health pause journey with us. And what a journey it has been. As we have established, each person's trauma is personal and unique to the individual. What causes your body and mind to respond a certain way because it is unable to cope with the situation being presented is also unique. As I sat with my memories and took last week to process what happened to me as a 22-year-old being sexually assaulted by a person of power, taking advantage of his position as my boss, the processing was in my mind and even in my body. The reframing of this memory and bringing this specific incident to the forefront of my thoughts in order to give myself the space to process, cope, and even accept what happened was causing me to feel the different emotions of the stages of grief. For those who are unfamiliar with the 5 stages of grief, they are denial, bargaining, anger, depression, and acceptance. A person who is experiencing grief may not feel these emotions in this order. Sometimes the emotions flow in different stages, and sometimes they all come at the same time. When I first started trauma therapy 3 years ago and discovered the double lower T traumas, I experienced these emotions, and yes, sometimes they all came at once, and it took me a long time to finally work through them because at that time I didn't have the tools to cope and to meet with my younger self, nor the adult self with kindness, care, empathy, love, and without contempt, shame, or guilt. So, how does community and self-care play into helping you with your grieving, your coping, and your healing? Having people around you who you trust and feel safe with is essential in the healing process. Whether they are family, a friend, a therapist, or other professional, knowing that you have people who make you feel safe and can meet you with care and compassion is key. Friends and family who've been in and through trauma therapy and have worked through some of their own traumas is a safe place, especially if they have done the hard work of healing. Let's be honest. Not everyone who has been in therapy has benefited from it because they were either unwilling or unable at that moment to do the work needed to process, cope with the knowledge of the trauma, or grieve and heal from the past. Having people around you to encourage you is great, but to have people around you who know what the journey towards healing looks like is encouragement on a different level. Not only do you now have a safe place to talk, sit and say nothing, or cry without judgment, shame, nor condemnation, they understand the emotions and the courage and strength that it takes to take this journey towards healing. This does not mean that they know exactly what you're going through, as each person's individual trauma experience is different, and the healing process can be similar, but still individual. If they have been through the journey, they have some tools to help you process, to help you lean in, and to help you feel all of the feelings and emotions that you were either conditioned to ignore and disregard, or which may feel a little too intense in the moment. For me, when I started my journey 3 years ago, one friend who is a therapist, but not my personal therapist, reminded me that part of the grieving can be for the future that I had hoped for and imagined. With this permission, I was able to grieve in a different manner. Even regarding the death of my father, now 25 years later, I spend time to grieve the future that he and I may have had. Some days, the grief is still as fresh as it was when he first passed. For my divorcing clients, I try my best to grieve with them as they are processing a myriad of emotions and thoughts themselves. I see my clients who grieve what their futures were supposed to look like as we are in mediation and the struggle to cope. I can see the different emotions of grief welling up, and I try to keep a safe environment for them to sit and feel and to know that it is okay to feel the anger, to be in denial, to finally get to a place of accepting that the divorce is moving forward, whether it was their decision or not to divorce. If you are grieving, to know that you are not alone as you are flooded with thoughts and emotions and don't know what to do is paramount. The process towards healing is lonely because only you can do the work. But to have to do it alone is not something that you have to choose. You can go through the healing process knowing that it is alone. It's a work that you alone could do, but it doesn't have to be lonely. So, self care. So, what does self care look like? For me, self care it takes several different forms. Here are some of the ones I incorporate when I'm in need of my own mental health pause, as I had to last week. Journaling, meditation, and mindset work, yoga nidra, massage therapy, and the basics like sleep, baths, eating right, and drinking water. So, journaling. For me, I think I have been journaling since I was a little girl. My mom has always kept a journal, and maybe that is how I started journaling. Journaling helps me put into words my thoughts and emotions. Sometimes they're in full sentences, sometimes there are quotes that resonate with me, sometimes I'm just venting. Meditation and mindset work. Being present with my thoughts and emotions are difficult at times, maybe most of the times. Meditation helps teach me to be in the present instead of journeying in thoughts towards the future or disassociating myself from the past and the present and also from the healing. Yes, disassociating is a coping mechanism, but for the long term healing of trauma, this is not a sustainable tool. Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is also known as sleep yoga. Researchers have found that our limbic system is where our memories and our traumas are stored. And as a self preservation method, we sometimes do not remember our traumas, as I've shared regarding my lowercase t trauma and even now my capital T trauma. Ways to rewire our limbic system may be done in our subconscious state. Now, please don't quote me on this because I'm not the research expert. I've just listened to a lot of podcasts on working on the limbic system and done a lot of reading. I am not the expert, but I do practice yoga nidra to help with mindset within the subconscious. It's like repeating affirmations in the mirror, but deeper because you're not only working while completely conscious in thought, but now working towards getting within that limbic system. Massage therapy. And and maybe, you could do the frou-frou feel good ones. For me, I actually go to like get therapy because I sit for so long during the day. But this past week, after the realization of my sexual assault and coming to the terms with this knowledge, I have, needless to say, had to pause quite often. The day I breathed oxygen into my assault memory, I really wasn't able to keep thinking clearly. So I took a break and got a pedicure just to take a moment to pause and to give myself space, not to push myself, to keep working, taking a moment to be kind and compassionate to myself as I would any of my clients who are overwhelmed by the emotions of their divorce. I was listening to Simon Sinek, and he was talking about how in his firm they have what's called a duvet day. It's not a sick day, but some days you just need that pause day. So they call it a duvet day. So, massage therapy. The next day after my pedicure, I actually had a previously scheduled massage, And I gave myself permission not to worry about work, not to stress over that last email or phone call. And with the understanding that when I am able to be kind to myself, I will show up for my clients with more kindness, more compassion, and more understanding of where they are at. And of course, going to the next self care items, the basics. Let's talk about the basics, such as sleep, taking baths, eating right, and even drinking water. If you haven't heard of the book, The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, the cover alone confirms that the brain, mind, and body are all integrated in the healing of trauma. When we get enough sleep, relax the body, keep the cortisol levels lowered, flush out the toxins, eat foods that do not inflame our system and thus triggering other inflammatory responses, and of course, drinking enough water, you are now allowing the brain and the mind to have access to more calm, as it now no longer needs to put out all this energy into keeping your nervous system stable or focusing on the gut from reacting from the inflammation of eating foods that you do not process well, or drinking the healing water just to hydrate and nourish your cells. Taking baths with Epsom salt and or doing infrared saunas to help flush out toxins is another great basic self-care method. If you have any suggestions for any other types of self-care, we would love to hear it. Would you mind please DMing us or putting a comment so that we can share with our audience? At Build Your Foundations, self-care is an essential component of our mental health pause. And we want to thank you for joining us on this journey to wellness and wholeness. Join us next week as we dive back into the basics of divorce series. If you would like to speak to someone or get connected with a therapist who may be able to help guide you and open dialogue towards acknowledging any trauma that you have faced, please reach out to us. We want to create a safe and inviting space for all who would like to take the brave steps towards healing. Also, if you are considering separation or divorce or have any questions on what we talked about today, please reach out to us and schedule a free consultation. We would love to connect with you. Link and contact info are in the bio. And even if you're not in the state of Washington or in the Seattle area, please contact us. We work with colleagues across the US who may be able to help you. And please share this post or tag someone if this speaks to you personally, or if it may benefit someone else. And lastly, if there is a topic you would like to discuss on a future episode, please DM us. And thank you so much for joining us for our mental health pause. And see you next week on Build Your Foundations.